Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to the Toronto International Film Festival. My name is Andrea Picard, and I'm one of the international programmers here today, and it's such a pleasure to be introducing our second screening of Her Smell by Alex Ross Perry to such a full house. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge that today's event is taking place on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of New Credit, the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work in the community. Now, this film is part of our platform competition, and it's available and it's eligible for the prize, which is presented by Air France. This film is also eligible for the Grolsch People's Choice Award, and we invite you to vote for your favorite film at tiff.net/vote. We would like to extend a big thank you to William Morris Endeavour Entertainment and Voltage Pictures for providing us with this film today. And now, I think many of you might be familiar with Alex Ross Perry's films. This is his sixth feature. He's a young American auteur, super prolific, and we've shown a number of his films in the building before as a limited release, but this is the first time he's actually at the festival proper, and I'm really pleased it's with this film. It's a thrilling ride, and many people are calling it a departure for Alex. He's known for his literary dialogues and bent, and I think that those hallmarks are still there, including the amazing cinematography provided by Sean Paul Price Williams, and he's worked with an ensemble, and here you'll see some virtuosic performances, especially by Elisabeth Moss. And Alex is an avid filmgoer. His films are steeped in cinema as well. He's one of the biggest cinephiles I know. He's also a great guy, and I'd like to call him out to introduce the film, so please welcome Alex Ross Perry.
Thank you. Thank you, Andrea. Thanks, everybody, for coming to this encore repeat screening. I'm very excited to be here. I've been having a good time at my first TIFF. It's actually an amazing honor to be brought here with this movie. And yeah, I don't have much to say beforehand. I hope people enjoy it. It's the worst movie ever to play at TIFF, says some asshole on Twitter. So
don't believe him.
Which is amazing, because like when you think about that, that's like out of literally thousands.
That is not part of our prizes today.
Yeah, but it counts for something. Yeah, I mean, like there's a sort of disreputability to the genre of music that I love and that I wanted to honor in this movie. And there's an interesting sort of disconnect between something that's, in a genre that most people think is not high art. And that's just something to explore in this movie, that I really wanted to try to make something about a band that I hadn't seen in a movie before. So thank you all for coming. I'll be back when the movie's over for a conversation. And thank you again for having me.
Thank you. Please welcome back to the stage Alex Ross Perry.
Thank you.
So I've seen this film a number of times now, and my heart still races, pretty much from start to finish. It's so intense. The performances...
You should get that looked at, first of all.
Okay, I don't have a heart problem as far as I know. But I was curious, first and foremost, and you've probably gotten this question before, when writing it, was this character written for Elisabeth Moss?
Yes. I texted her in between the premiere of our last movie, Queen of Earth, at Berlin, and the release of the movie, which was like 6 months later. So unlike that movie, which was written in the hopes that she would do it, I knew from the moment of conception that this was going straight to performance. Which, even though I've, in the last couple of movies, written with people in mind, it was never like this, where it was just writing the closed captioning underneath a performance that already existed. Was essentially what it felt like from the very beginning. And then it was what would be fun to see her do. It was never like, what is an abstract character and who could play it? It was just like, and then she will do this, and I can hear her saying those lines, and I can do that. So it was as straight into her mouth and onto the screen as possible.
And there are many lines. I mean, I remember the crescendos in Queen of Earth, and this is an entirely different level of intensity, but also physical intensity. And with the camera and the proximity at the beginning, can you talk about maybe just the choreography of all of that?
Yeah. Well, each act was shot sequentially, not the whole movie. We shot the acts out of order. but each act was preceded by a rehearsal day of like a full day, full crew, no camera rolling, where basically we just created like a floor plan of the complete choreography of the subsequent 25 pages. And this was really fun because you'd never do this. And it's always like figuring it out in the moment when everything else needs to be done. But having a 10-hour day where that's the only task and the whole cast is there gave us the freedom of like, okay, so maybe like we were just thinking you're going to come in that door, but I think it makes more sense to come in this door. And then the props department is watching, and an actor would say, can you put lighter here? Can you put cigarettes here for me, but put the lighter over there? And can you give me a bottle here? And can you give me, and it was like really like a conversational day, just because all we had was the script. We didn't have the moments, and the speed of filming these acts necessitated that none of that was left to chance, and that none of it was like a decision we hadn't thought of when we were filming.
But this was your decision to do this?
Yeah, it was between Lizzie and myself, just because like when she read it, one of her questions was, how do we start? Like, what is day one? Usually on a movie, day one is like, like a character walks down the street, checks their mail, and goes inside. Like, just because you don't want to overdo it. And I was like, yeah, I don't know. Like, is day one, running around the halls with the baby and everything? Or then I was like, do we dare start that huge on day one? And then later I was like, actually, I think maybe day one we do nothing. Day one is just rehearsal. And then on day two, we'll feel like, all right, like we should probably get into this now. And then, day two is 12 pages of, the entire beginning of the movie.
And what was that location?
What do you mean?
So in the club, did you build? And
Yeah. I built some sets this time, so I could pretend like I'm a real filmmaker from an era where that meant something, where you could actually create things the way you want them rather than make do with what they are.
And what about the rest of the cast, who are all phenomenal, but like Eric Stoltz is really great.
Yeah, that's right. He sure is.
I mean,
can we start talking about Stoltz? Is this Stoltz talk? I had a vision of him being in this movie. That was like a very slippery role that I couldn't figure out exactly. And I was driving back from visiting my dad one day, and I just had it because I'd looked him up before. I knew he hasn't basically been in a movie in like 7 or 8 years.
Your dad doesn't look like him.
No, it has nothing to do with my dad. I'm just describing why I was in the car for so long. And I just was like, I've looked him up, and he directs. I mean, he's directed maybe 100 episodes of television in the last 10 years. And I just said, wouldn't it be cool what about him? I didn't know he lived in New York. I didn't know he was like a guy who walks to set. I didn't know that he was the easiest person in the world I just was like, I love that guy. I want to see him in a movie again. Looked at a current picture of him, and I was like, is he one of those guys that got like fat and bald? And I was like, no, he looks incredible. He should still be in movies. And, it's just like a dream come true. And then the rest of it was just like, it's just dynamics. Like, you have Lizzie in the movie, like 5'2", blonde. So then it's like, well, I want her bass player to be like a tall, dark English lady. Like, that just became a very clear idea. And I want the drummer to be like someone who clearly comes from a riot girl culture and therefore has like a very specific look. And then it's just building chemistry off of that. But her involvement from that early stage, both as the main actor and then as a producer, was like vetting all of this and talking about it, and just like fortunately getting to make the movie just with like the best people. Like, our producers, to their infinite credit, were not like, I don't know, I mean, we could probably stack this cast with like some real heavies instead of these like amazing actors who are not as famous as some people who want to be in this movie. And it's just like, yeah, but these are the best people, and the movie will be the best movie with them. And most people in the industry are scared of that decision, which is disgusting, and it's why you see so many poorly cast movies. And it's really hard to like find people that will actually just be like, oh, this is exactly the right casting.
Were they all musically inclined?
Not really. I think it's a pretty wide spectrum. Like Gail, who plays Allie the drummer, went to Juilliard and has been in cabaret and, has done music and can sing, but that doesn't mean she knows the first thing about playing the drums. And Cara, who plays Cassie in the Acre Girls, like can play drums, guitar, piano, like anything you put in front of her. So that was, and then like Dylan in the Acre Girls has never picked up an instrument in her life before rehearsing for this movie, like me. So it's a real spectrum of people. And like Agnes's husband is a classical pianist, so like he helped her practice. And it's the hardest thing in the world to ask people to do. No one should ever ask actors to do this. I think the only thing that harder will be asking someone to do ballet. It's like the hardest thing in the world to try to get 6 people to become musically proficient in a way that makes it seem like this is what they do for a living. It's insane that people did it. I just can't believe, I couldn't believe watching how hard they worked at it. I was like, geez, really didn't think about how much work it would take to look like you know how to play the drums. But I'm glad you're doing it. All right, I'll just be over here. But it sounds good.
When you introduced the film, you said that you wanted to sort of delve into, the alt music scene, and that something that was considered, low art versus high art. But there's also like a real subjectivity here, and I think that there's some speculation as to who Becky Something was modeled after. And people are talking about Courtney Love and others. I'm just wondering, is she pieced together? Is she iconic?
To me, if there's a North Star in my mind in writing this movie and in the Becky, Murray, Allie relationship, it's Axl Rose, Slash, and Duff. Like, it's that reunion tour in 2016 finally clicked this movie for me. But then it's just like, what if Axl Rose or what if like Liam Gallagher just was a woman? What if all of that behavior that we've heard about, just put it in a female body? And just like, what does that look like? How okay is that now? Because when it's a guy, it's like, a rock star. It's pretty cool, right? Like being mean, drinking, screaming at people, like classic stuff. But it's like, what if that's a woman, like what is that now? And like, can you just do that and make no further concessions to the fact that it's no longer like some dude? But like, then it just becomes dozens for me. And like, this is sort of like, this like slippery, like finding like a way to be inspired by like a hero like Paul Thomas Anderson. Like you look at, Boogie Nights, There Will Be Blood, The Master, Phantom Thread. Like these are all things that are like, who's that character based on? And it's like a little bit of this, maybe like a lot. I think it's a lot of that. And it's just like, it's just based on the thing, like I'll say I read a biography of this fashion designer, but then it's like, but who really cares like about that biography? Because you just want to make the movie. But like in terms of like a trio that like really just broke up and then like hated each other, like a band like Jawbreaker is like very important to me as well. And again, like bands just break up. So like it's so many that I looked at. And every story I read has some little kernel of truth. But like certainly historically, only one woman has ever really succeeded and become famous and successful by acting like a male rock star, and that is Courtney Love. So she's in people's minds anyway, but just because she flew the highest. But there's a lot of women from that era that are so much more insane, and they just didn't sell as many records. So people they don't jump to mind. But yeah, it's a lot of bands and a lot of breakups and a lot of music and a lot of forceful personalities. But Guns N' Roses and Oasis were pretty big. In terms
of for destruction.
Yes, that's a future tagline for the movie.
Surely there are questions for Alex.
Shirley has the microphone? Oh. These are great jokes up here, by the way.
Yes, in the back right there. And please speak up because you don't have a microphone.
I was very curious how you found the baby girl in the first part of the film. She really seemed to love Elisabeth Moss and was never frightened by her behavior. Was that a difficult find? Did Elisabeth Moss spend time with that baby to get her to like her?
Should we repeat that? The question was about the baby in Act 1 and how comfortable the baby seemed around Lizzie and whether or not the baby and Lizzie rehearsed together. That's a little movie magic. It's our producer's son, if you can believe that. Give that a second to sink in. I repeat, that is a boy. But Adam, our producer, was like, he's never had a haircut, so I think it'll be fine. Just say princess a lot, and it's just like, and just don't put my son in anything that's gonna like scar him for life. Like he can't wear a tutu, but we can put him in a bear suit. Like we can't abuse the child, but we can put him in a bear. We can make him a bear. Everyone loved him. He was the best. Everyone on set loved him, and he was so happy to be at work every day, which is great. I think maybe 2.5 is like the cutoff of when you're just always happy to be out working for 10 hours, because he had the best time.
Not knowing how much he's being paid.
Yeah. No, he got like a toy. I think he asked for like a bucket as his payment, like some sort of a toy bucket he'd seen. It was just nice. It gave everyone a good energy. But also like that was the first week, and like I'd never worked with children or babies at all. So certainly we were anticipating that this would just slow everything down and ruin everything. But instead the kid actually like took fewer breaks than Lizzie. Just, perhaps his role was less challenging, but it was actually, I was like, oh, working with babies is easy if they're like this. They just kind of stare at whoever's holding them and don't ever complain, right? That's what all babies are like.
Yes, right here.
At what point did you start putting the original music into the movie? Is that like far before production or later?
At what point did you put the original music into the film?
In the script, it was just like, this song will be original, this will be original. And the first drafts of the script were like, but it will be like this song. You know, no one ever confirmed to me that they actually, it was like, please look up this song, this is what this will feel like. No one ever was like, I looked that up, I know now. Maybe someone did. But it was very early. I mean, that search was on very early because I knew it would take a really long time not to find Alicia, who wrote all the Something She music, and then Aniko, who wrote the Acre Girls song. I didn't think it would take like an exhaustive search. I just thought like the process of getting this, recording it, delivering it, having the actors have time to learn it. Like I knew that was something, I could very clearly see us rushing that and not doing it well. So I don't really remember exactly when it started, but it was like, you know, probably like 9 months beforehand. Because I know that we shot the movie in April, and I know that as far back as October, I saw Alicia on tour, and I'd been like in touch with her for months already. So like she must have started like about a year ago. But yeah, I mean, it was something that needed to be taken care of right away because it's the first question people would ask after reading the script is like, what are you going to do about the music? And then when the answer was like, there's this fantastically talented woman, she's on Sub Pop, her music's incredible, she's going to write it. They were just like, okay, sounds great. And it was just trust. It was just me listening to her music and then saying, here's exactly what I want for these 3 songs, but I don't know anything about songwriting. I don't know anything about writing lyrics, but here's what's happening in this part of the movie. And everything she delivered, I was like, this is incredible. This is amazing. It's like you just wrote 5 minutes of the movie for me. So it was really fun. It was really rewarding, and a very interesting process to learn and then get the sort of stripped down tracks that's just the drums so that people can learn and just the guitar part. Like it was really complicated. It's another thing no one should ever do. It takes too much work. It's really hard to try to back yourself into it. But it is fun.
And what about the choice of Heaven?
Heaven was always that was always it. That was it. That was the movie. That's Act 4 from. I don't remember. I wish I could remember where I thought of it. Like it's an idea that like you should write down the day you think of the idea because you know you're going to get asked it forever. But I don't remember where I thought of it. I don't remember where. I don't remember how I knew that sequence needed that moment. But like at some point I was just like, it's one of those things that can only happen before writing. Because like if you get to that point in writing and you don't know, then it's not going to work. It's like before even starting, it's just like, and then in Act 4, she's going to sit down and play Heaven on the piano. And now I can write the movie because I know that happens. But yeah, I mean, I love...
It's key in some way.
Yeah, it was very important and it was always in there. It's just, yeah, it's a weirdly appropriate song at that moment.
Bryan Adams.
Canada's national hero.
Totally. Question right here.
What about the rest of the sound, the Elisabeth Moss character having that sound? Do you always have that in mind from the beginning that the noise would be there, or does that come throughout?
The enveloping sound that follows Elisabeth Moss' character.
This is the same sound designer as has done my last 3 movies, so I'm very familiar with him. And by the way, it will never ever look or sound better than it does in this theater. I'm so happy to be in the light box. Yeah, when I met with him like a year ago and he read the script and I just said, this is a movie where you can hear light. That's all I can say. And he was like, okay. Got it. Anything else? And I was like, no. Well, you can probably hear the fan too. And he was like, okay. But that was it. And like, it's all part of subjective trickery. Like if a camera can make you feel like it's subjecting you to what she's doing, both at its craziest and at its most static, and then what you're hearing can subject you to what she's feeling and doing at both its craziest and its most static, then we're using all the tricks to be like, oh, I understand. This is exactly the way to feel. I'm being completely manipulated into something that is now not telling me what I should emotionally react to, but it's making me feel like I'm there. And why bother making a movie otherwise?
And that's why I made my heart race. I don't have a heart condition.
Yeah.
It's part of that. We have time for one more question right here.
So you were talking earlier about like writing this role for Elisabeth, and I'm just wondering, like in the process of writing it and creating her character of Becky, just like what notes did she give? What did she pull into her life that, like, because her performance is amazing, fantastic, and I haven't seen anything like that at all this year.
To repeat the question, what is Elisabeth Moss' contribution to this role? Because it's like one of the best performances of the year. And so what did she bring to
Yeah,
writing?
she had one very specific note to play up in the earliest draft into the subsequent drafts, which was that Becky's intelligence had to be as strong as it believably could be, considering the circumstances of the beginning of the movie. And we had to find ways to track it down. So in Act 1, she was very clear that like Becky still has to have it together. And this is why you have lines in Act 1 where she's like, are we doing that on Tuesday instead of this day, like you said? And like, I don't, you told me this thing. And it's just like, at that point in the movie, she seems like she's keeping track of a lot of stuff. You said you were bringing the daughter next week. Are we still doing those recording sessions at this studio? Like, she has it all together in Act 1. And then her note was like, you just have to, by Act 3, feel like she doesn't remember anything anymore. And like, she doesn't even understand where she is. But in Act 1, as much as can be possible considering where we start the movie, which is like 9 out of 10, just make sure that like there's something about her that people aren't like, there's nowhere further to go down. Like, she's still remembering things. She knows all this stuff. She has a lot of information. She's kind of quick in her own way. And then she wanted there to be less of that in 2 and basically none of it in 3. That was like her biggest note. And her other note was, we need to just really make sure that the dynamics between characters other than Becky are clear. Hence, like, really making sure that like a scene on the couch with like Dirtbag and Allie like has a little substance about their backstory, and you understand that. And a moment where Mari kisses the baby, and you understand later when it says you're her godmother, it's like, so they have some relationship. She was just really clear that each one of those other dynamics had to have some little element that just had to be there for her to really feel excited by casting all those other roles.
I have to say the vulnerability that runs all the way through within all those dynamics is phenomenal from start to finish, as much as the intensity. And that line where Zelda says, time passes, that's where it all just kind of comes together.
Certainly does pass, lots of it. Yeah, I mean, like, it is just like, because I have no experience in like a realm of, like sobriety, like personally, but I have a lot of experience being all the other people. So there's a lot of just like proximal pain that I think is very understandable in dealing with people who have addictions and have problems, mental problems, any sort of problems, any sort of diseases, or, it's very clear to me how those dynamics are around those people. And then just splitting it up into, Dirtbag and Howard and Mari and Allie, and just letting it all be around her. Yeah, it's all part of it. Time does pass, though, including the 135 minutes you spent watching this. So thank you all.
And this Q&A. So thank you so much for being here, Alex.
Thank you, Andrea.
Thank you.